It never feels like a life or death decision when you step out of the car for a minute. In the back seat, a child sits strapped into a car seat, quiet, half distracted, while the engine clicks off. The parent lowers the windows slightly before closing the door, just enough, they believe, to let the heat escape. Outside, the afternoon feels harmless. People walk past with groceries. The air is warm, but ordinary. Inside the car, physics begins working immediately. Sunlight floods through the glass, and the temperature starts climbing, often 20 degrees in just 10 minutes. The cracked windows don't ventilate the car. They barely change anything. The air stalls. The heat builds. The back seat becomes a trap. Most people do not leave a child in a car because they think it is dangerous. They do it because they believe they have already solved the danger. The windows are cracked. The air can move. The heat can escape. At least, that is the assumption. It feels logical. A sealed car would trap heat, but a slightly open window should let it breathe. That small gap feels like protection. A quiet safety measure that turns a risky moment into a manageable one. But a parked car does not behave like a ventilated room. When sunlight passes through the glass, it strikes the interior surfaces and converts into heat that cannot easily escape. The air inside the cabin barely circulates, even when the windows are partially open. So, the temperature keeps rising. According to safety researchers, cracking the windows or parking in the shade changes the interior temperature only slightly. The car still heats up, fast, and the protection people trust the most is almost meaningless. The danger does not come from the sun alone. It comes from what the car does with that sunlight once it gets inside. Light pours through the windshield and side windows, spreading across the dashboard, the seats, the plastic trim. Every surface absorbs it. Every surface begins turning that light into heat. At first, nothing seems dramatic. The cabin just feels a little warmer than the air outside. But the heat has nowhere to go. The glass lets sunlight enter easily, yet the warmth it creates struggles to escape. The vehicle begins behaving less like a ventilated space and more like a greenhouse sitting in the sun. Within minutes, the air temperature starts climbing. By 10 minutes, the interior can already be about 20 degrees hotter than the world outside the car. And it keeps rising. The seats warm first. Then the air itself starts to feel heavy. The entire cabin slowly tightens into something closer to an oven. People imagine a cracked window will release that heat. But the opening is too small. The air barely moves. The sunlight keeps flooding in. And the temperature continues climbing, minute after minute. Inside that small space, the heat is winning. What makes this situation truly dangerous is not just the rising heat inside the car. It is how differently a child's body responds to that heat. Adults often assume that if the environment feels uncomfortable, the body will adapt for a while. Sweat begins, breathing changes. The body tries to cool itself. But children do not regulate heat the same way. A child's body temperature rises far faster than an adult's, in many cases, 3 to 5 times faster. Their smaller bodies absorb heat quickly, and their cooling systems are far less efficient at pushing that heat back out. Inside a parked vehicle, that difference becomes critical. As the cabin warms, a child cannot move freely to escape the hottest surfaces. They are strapped into a car seat, surrounded by upholstery and plastic that are absorbing the same sunlight heating the air. The environment tightens around them. Their body temperature begins climbing with the cabin. And unlike an adult, they cannot open a door. They cannot step into the shade. They cannot escape the heat building around them. They are completely dependent on the person who closed the door. What makes these tragedies so unsettling is that they rarely begin with recklessness. They begin with a small, confident calculation. Just a minute. A quick stop inside the store, a short line at the counter, something that feels too brief to matter. The windows are cracked. The air outside does not feel extreme. Everything about the situation appears manageable. That quiet confidence is the instinct people rely on. But the human brain is terrible at judging slow, invisible threats, especially when nothing looks immediately wrong. From outside the vehicle, the day still feels mild. The parking lot is calm. The car looks exactly the same as it did a few minutes earlier. Inside, the conditions are changing far faster than anyone standing outside can sense. The temperature keeps climbing, the air keeps thickening, and the dangerous part is that the parent walking toward the store still believes they solved the problem. Just a small gap in the window, just enough air, just a minute. Sometimes that minute is all it takes. What makes this danger so deceptive is how normal everything looks from the outside. The day does not have to feel brutally hot. In fact, many deadly hot car incidents happen on days people would simply call warm. 60 or 70 degrees outside can still create lethal conditions inside a parked vehicle, because the car does not warm slowly, it surges. Within minutes, the temperature inside can climb dramatically, even while the air outside still feels comfortable on your skin. Parking in the shade might slow the process slightly. Cracking the windows might release a tiny amount of air, but neither stops what is happening inside the cabin. The sunlight still enters, the heat still builds. The small interior space keeps holding it, and the difference between outside and inside grows wider with every passing minute. There is a simple rule that removes the guesswork from this situation. If you leave the car, the child leaves the car. Not for 5 minutes, not for 1 minute, not with the windows cracked, because once the engine is off and the doors close, the vehicle stops behaving like transportation. It becomes a heat trap. And no small gap in the glass will change the physics happening inside that cabin. The only real protection is simple. The child leaves the car with you. Share this warning so the next parent who thinks it's only a minute sees it first. Be honest, before watching this, did you think cracked windows actually made a parked car safe?